Oh boy, this is a response video to a recent episode of Vic and Hope, my brother and his fiance's Let's Play show, where they recently had an episode called Go to College, Kids, in which Victor gives the most piss poor argument imaginable for why you should go to college, and basically harps on me and the PCP as not being successful enough to give advice about whether someone should or shouldn't go to college, and then also calls us out as just artistically non-directional and not doing anything. Basically, his argument is sort of the PCP are not doing anything, which is preposterous at the moment because pretty much everyone in the PCP is laid up hard into doing something. And also, most of them are pretty successful at it. Victor calls into question my success throughout this, sort of insinuating that, like, oh, I'm middle class and that's not super successful as an artist. But who he's citing as, like, successful is, like, a Disney animator? How much do you think animators make? I make more money than a lot of anime directors do. If you've ever seen that chart of, like, how much does each figure in the industry make, I make more than pretty much anybody in the Japanese animation industry, you know, and, like, a lot more than probably a lot of people in the American animation industry. Certainly in the kind of shows that I'd be talking about. I live in the most expensive city in the fucking country. You know, I have a two-story house that I have several people living in for free. You know, like, I don't see how I could ever be construed as unsuccessful. So, like, to see this argument, like, oh, you know, you gotta go to college so that you can get a mid-level production job on a film, like, you're not, what is that? You're not making seven figures doing that, you know? You make seven figures by being a celebrity, or by being a businessman, you know, not by being a grunt worker of the industry. You get that because you either played your cards right on, you know, creating a product that could perpetuate itself in a business-like fashion, or you know, just become really famous and cared about and have money thrown at you to just perpetuate your own existence. Those are the ways that you make over $1 million, you know, in your lifetime. You're not going to make that being the DP on, like, regular studio movies, you know? Maybe if you become a superstar DP and really famous directors want to hire you, you'll make more money, but that's not the same type of person as just, oh, I worked up the ranks. You know, that's like somebody special with a talent and a vision who probably practices a lot, you know, is not simply restrained to what they are asked to do to make money within the industry, you know, because there's an amount of work that you are expected to do to make progress, and then you can fill the rest of your time with further work and make faster progress. And it's easier to do that when you're unbeholden to anybody above you, you know, telling you how much you have to do per square amount of time. You can set those parameters more yourself and live at your own pace, which is the value of this job that we pursue. The reason that YouTube is a great job to have, even though it has so many fucking issues. You never hear anybody who's successful on YouTube who complains about all this shit ever leave YouTube and go get a regular job. They only leave if they find opportunities in the entertainment industry outside of YouTube. But they don't just give up their YouTube channel because working on YouTube has its problems. Because having this lifestyle allows you to make a comfortable amount of money living however the fuck you want. You never have to be a part of anyone's schedule. You don't have to go to school at a set time or to work at a set time. You don't have to have any social connections outside of the ones that you trust personally and that you want to harbor. You know, you get a sense of community because you work closely with the people who consume your content a lot of the time. You have, you know, influence, you have pride, your words mean something to people, and you attain all of this with no real help except from the groundwork laid by the algorithm. You basically have the same opportunities as anyone else involved in YouTube because production level doesn't matter on the platform. It literally doesn't. People don't give a fuck what the video looks or sounds like. They care about the content of the video. Countless videos with millions of views have barely any production value. And it's because everything here stands on its ability to appeal to the consumer. And while the algorithm has shaped the way that people create their videos so that lots of stuff has become very samey and you don't have as much of the other expression styles, it's not because those can't be successful, it's because nobody wants to take risks. Everybody is trying to play things safe and close to the chest. And the PCP is one of the few organizations, and I might as well call it that because it is one, that is interested in not trying to perpetuate algorithmic success. We're all trying to find a way to be successful without having to rely on making the stuff that is most obviously populist by taking risks. Everyone involved in the PCP is constantly taking risks. They're constantly shifting their content styles. They're constantly trying new things, trying to see what's going to catch on or what's going to be profitable, which are two different things. And the PCP podcast in itself, while not hugely successful, in terms of view count rather, is very successful monetarily because it has a diehard fan base of people who consistently pay a lot of money to keep it running and to hear the bonus episodes. It makes like a shit ton of money for the people involved, especially if they edit it. You can make like $400 a month editing a couple episodes of the PCP and showing up on all of them. So it's very lucrative, you know? And if your standard of living, if you don't really care about living a high standard of living, which like Tom and Ben, they're not like unsuccessful because they're not trying to like, that they're not working hard enough. You know, they're unsuccessful because they refuse to change the tenor of their art to make it something more acceptable. They're like, I'm not going to follow an algorithm to attain success. I'm going to take a huge risk, and I'm going to put my all into something that doesn't have an obvious success paradigm. And I am so willing to commit myself to that vision that it is more important to me than my standard of living. Tom is just like, making YouTube videos makes me feel miserable. I don't care if I live in a car and eat Huel because he doesn't value those kinds of things out of life. Like he is legitimately a tortured and strange man who has weird ways of looking at the world and just doesn't care about his living situation. He just wants to make the kind of art he wants to make. And so every day he slaves away at literally learning how to code entirely from scratch and developing a game as he learns the code to do it. And he's made insane progress, vastly beyond what he could be learning in college. His college friend, like a friend of his who went to college for this and was helping to guide him through, told him that the amount that he had learned in a week was equivalent to a semester of what he had gone through in college. You can literally teach yourself faster. And this isn't to say that a really amazing college can't offer you some kind of opportunities, but you don't need it. If you want to use it, you have to be using it for a very specific purpose. You have to be like, I need these connections specifically. But going to college is not the best even way to get connections. Munchie already has tons of connections, for instance, to use the example Victor's giving in here, where he's saying like Munchie should go to college to make connections. He has hundreds of connections online. He has people who fly out to Boston to go to conventions of like 10 people for a fucking video game that him and Ben are literally running. They are running a MMORPG out of a Discord server, and everyone involved with it is extremely involved with it, and the fans will do basically anything for it. They've run Kickstarters to have conventions for Rowdy Fuckers Cop Killers. That's the name of it, by the way. So, you know, there's obviously a huge mountain of some form of success there, but they have not shown an interest in monetizing it. No one has even tried, because no one cares. Because Ben is supported by being on the PCP and by having, you know, the Patreon that he has for his comic and for just people who want to perpetuate things like Endless War. He makes enough to live the lifestyle that he's comfortable with, and there's no need to involve any further monetization in the process. And like, he would surely, everyone in the PCP hopes that it can be something that they have set up that just perpetuates itself and makes a lot of money for them, you know? That, like, they can go do their own thing because the PCP as an entity makes enough money that they don't have to worry about paying rent. They just have the PCP there to pay the rent, and then whatever they do on their own time is something they can take a risk on and make their own decisions on. Most people can't even consider doing things like this. Most people do not have the opportunity to ask themselves of how they can best, you know, manage doing their fun job that isn't exactly what they want to be doing with their life, and the less profitable side excursion that is the only thing they ever want to be doing for the rest of their life. Like, most people aren't on that level of decision making in their day-to-day. Most people are like, I fucking hate my job, you know? I don't think that. I don't have moments where I fucking hate my job. Maybe occasionally when I read a comment or something. And I don't work as hard as I could. I work hard. I am a very fast worker. I'm a very efficient worker. I get a lot of fucking shit done, even if I take my time and I fucking, you know, spend a lot of time, like, just hanging out with May and living life, you know, doing the everyday chores and shit, like, just taking my time and living my life at my own pace and still getting tons of shit done and making fuckloads of money. Like, that is the American dream. That is what I am living. If you can't look up to that, then I don't know what you can look up to. But moreover, I don't even consider myself to be a paragon of the lifestyle that I am looking for, and I'm young as shit as a 27-year-old, you know, not as young as I wish I was at the level of success that I am at, but, like, still, you know, lots of people who I look up to are people who got their start even later, or are very successful in their 30s. And, you know, I see lots of these guys who just gradually stepped up in the same way that all of us have been doing, and, you know, have reached a comfortable niche for themselves and are doing good. And a lot of those people, they just made something by themselves the first time, and then they had connections. Like, if you look at M. Strange, for instance, he's somebody who just handmade movies. You know, he did stop motion films with dolls, and, like, computer graphics eventually, and, like, he just made a feature film entirely by himself, entered it into a film festival, and got some attention, so then he could, you know, it got sold, he could then, you know, involve more people on future films, and therefore have connections. And, like, he could also do commissions. So he's done, like, tons of music videos for, you know, high-profile artists, like Mindless Self-Indulgence, you know? Like, people who would have paid him a handsome amount of money to make a cool music video in his aesthetic, basically whatever he wants to do, you know? That's the kind of artist you should be looking up to. Not necessarily me. I'm not all the way there yet. But for my age, and, like, for what I do, I am insanely successful. I would easily recommend people this path because it's not difficult. And if you want to be even more cynical about it, you can make way the fuck more money. You know, you just have to be willing to do the things you have to do. You know, it's all about just, what do I want to do? Because there's no point in doing a career like this if you are interested in just doing what everybody else wants you to do. Because then you could just go get a regular fucking, you could just go be a lawyer or something, you know, you can just get a job that's about following a strict set of rules and just, like, knowing the rules better than anybody else. That is a type of person that you could be. But if you are somebody who doesn't want to follow any rules, you go into a field where that can be acceptable. And this is why I've been so frustrated with the anime industry, and why I talk so much about my problems with it at present being that there's not a lot of risk-taking. There's just too much, like, splintering off and making low-budget shit, because if you're just trying to crack the market, you could just go into a field where that is something that comes naturally. Like, if you want to be an artist, if your only interest in the arts is, I'm going to make a best-selling novel, then it's like, there's other things you could do that are more lucrative than write a best-selling novel. But if that really is your goal, you just gotta follow the fucking, follow the yellow brick road on that one, you know? But, like, most of us don't get involved in the arts for those reasons. I don't know, is Munchie sincerely want to become an animator at Disney? Like, is he sincerely concerned with taking that route? Then yes, you do have to go to college to become an animator at Disney, probably. But, like, you can become an animator on TV just by being good. Tons of what are called NetJew or Net Generation animators have appeared on fuck tons of anime over the last 5 years, ever since really the mid-2000s when, like, Rio Timo got famous and involved in the industry, and then just, like, ever since then, tons of people who are just known for posting fucking, literally just posting animations they've done online, getting hired from around the world, not even just in Japan, but, like, people who can speak Japanese getting hired onto anime because they can just animate well, and that's been proven because they've posted it to the internet. Yeah, you have tons of connections when you post online. If you do something that gets 10,000 views, you don't know who the fuck is viewing that shit. And if it's major companies like Crunchyroll and Funimation, they're constantly paying attention to anybody who comes out. If you're an anime YouTuber and you hit 100,000 views even on a video, Miles from Crunchyroll is watching your shit and deciding whether or not he's gonna hire you onto his website as a writer. He didn't hire me because I am fucking Digibro. I go out of my way to do whatever I want, to be a controversial YouTube figure. Nobody wants to work with that guy, and I don't want to work with them. That's not the lifestyle I am chasing after. So you understand why I say that, like, the idea of going to college, it's like you don't believe that there's a way you can do it by yourself, which means you haven't thought about it, or you haven't talked to enough people who are successful to understand how they got successful. And you also don't understand enough about what everyone is doing. Like, if you think that everyone in the PCP is not doing anything, it's because you're not doing research on what they're doing. You're looking at the one avenue you know about that you happen to be a fan of without realizing that that person might have moved on to a totally different endeavor that's profitable in its own right. You know, Victor's criticizing Nate for streaming all the time and not making enough Wiagawa without seeming to realize that Nate's new Smash series is way better and more successful than Wiagawa. It's by far the best videos that Nate's done in a long time. All three of the major ones. They're fucking hilarious, they're highly rewatchable, they're super engaging, they're exactly the style that Nate does best and is best suited to create. I mean, it's pretty much his own style. Like, there's other people who've done similar things, but he's really taken it and made it his own. They get fuckloads of views because they're all about Smash hype, and those views are from an outside audience to what is his normal viewership. He's not just getting PCP fans or, Digibro runoff or any shit like that. Like, these are just sincere standalone hits that he's creating. And so he's clearly was just like, well, fucking Wiagawa sucks. Like, the last episode he did was, like, the worst one. And I think he detected that. He was like, yeah, I don't have enough ideas to keep this shit interesting and to fucking, spend the amount of time it takes to make these watchable, when I could just be doing something that's, like, takes a little longer and will be an even bigger hit. And that's what he's been doing. Meanwhile, doing Nuzlocke on Twitch, where he's making probably some pretty decent, okay money. And everybody wants to have a Twitch presence because YouTube is a shaky fucking platform, and Twitch is making a shit ton of money because individual people donate a lot more on Twitch than they do on YouTube or Patreon. So everyone wants to have multi-platform content so that they have multiple revenue sources, so that if one thing stops working out, another thing is there to fill its place in the stopgap. And, it's just a safe way to be. I don't think anyone in the PCP is currently, like, in a monetary situation that they are unhappy with. Like, I'm not satisfied because I'll never be satisfied. I am the type of person who, like, will always be like, oh, well, here's what I could do if I had even more money, Like, I might settle down at some point where I just make an amount where I'm like, okay, I'm starting a family, I have enough money, I don't need to worry about, like, making any more than this. So as long as I make this amount for the rest of my life, I'm good, But, like, more likely, I'll just keep trying to make more money, no matter how much I make. So, like, and the only way to do that is to just be good. You have to be consistently good because people are not, the world is not going to respect your authority and deserving of money if you don't remain good. And, I don't know if Victor's been paying attention to my content. I don't know if he watches my videos currently. I don't know what are his past favorites or what he considers to be good or bad that I've created since those past favorites. I don't know where he thinks I've gone or if he thinks that I've somehow been doing less because I've been doing just tons of shit. And I've repaired my Patreon over months after I had moved and, it caused a huge fissure. I re-engaged a lot of my patrons and my fan base. I've got the I Am Games brand that I've been building over the last, 3 months, which is growing at a pretty solid rate for a new channel. It's not like an instant fucking takeoff success, but having almost 10,000 subs in 3 months is a great track record for a new gaming channel, And it has connections, i.e. the people in it, in addition to their connections. So, and I'm not even one to really call upon my connections, and I have tons of them. I'm connected with The Dick Show, who has fuckloads of connections. I'm connected with, I'm connected with the Anthony Fantano of The Needle Drop and YMS and, other YouTubers who are higher up than I am, in terms of social capital on the internet. And I don't really flex that kind of shit because I don't really enjoy working with people that much. I respect all those guys and I like their content, but I don't really want to be on their shows all the time. And they're not generally people who have tons of guests on their shit, So, well, except for Dick, obviously, and that's why I've been on his show so many times. But, it's just, obviously I am pretty well connected. I just don't, I'm not out here exercising all this shit, but, people are constantly emailing me from, colleges and from, just, all kinds of careers connected to mine offering to work for me. I'm always getting offers from, graphic designers or from, just basically anyone in a position that could do anything that could help me. Music students offering to, master my fucking recordings for me. It's having an audience is having connections. And so, the way I look at it, when I look at someone like Munchie, who's insanely talented, I'm just like, yeah, you could go to college and maybe you'll even do well. And if there's some goal you have in mind that college is specifically suited to fulfill, then go do that. But like, you could spend that time building a brand as an individual on the internet and just cultivating enough of a fan base and enough of like an identity online that you could transform it into something different, you know, that you could continue growing that. And you know, I'm describing something that I'm not saying that anybody could do, because it really does come down to like, what do you like doing, what do you know how to do, you know. But that's what we've been doing for like 6 years, and you know, we're good at doing it. It's just really funny that Victor's coming at us like the PCP. They're not successful enough to tell you not to go to college. What are you talking about? Everyone in it is making a shitload of money off of the PCP. So, you know, you just aren't following the money. You just don't know what the revenue sources are, and you don't know the theory behind why people take their content in the direction they do. You don't understand why Nate is making these Smash videos that is clearly a better decision. Hippo, by the way, because Victor brought up how he, you know, has these connections into the animation industry, and he's like, oh, you wouldn't have got that without going to college. Except that Hippo's connection to the animation industry is through a woman who was all of our biggest patron. She was someone who was giving everyone in the PCP a lot of money for a long time until she decided to open her own animation studio. Now, no doubt the fact that Hippo is, you know, went to animation school probably contributed to her desire to work with him, and because through having done so, he had created a bunch of short films and shown that he could do good animated comedy. But he didn't necessarily even need to go to college to prove that to her, you know. And he's hired as a writer, so it's not even necessarily the same degree. You know, it's not necessarily that he's using his animation degree to write on an animated show, because someone with a writing degree could have had that job, you know? Like, it's just so narrow-minded a view of what it is to be a YouTuber, to be a content creator that is not connected to the most obvious traditional industry, because that's all that college is. It's just obvious. It's not like overwhelmingly the biggest part of society. Like, not everyone with a good job went to college. It's like a high percentage, but it's not like, oh, 99.8. It's not like there's a few people making it on their own. Like, entire industries are making it on their own. You know, the entire music industry, like, aside from the people who are on the technical side of it, like, there's hundreds of musicians coming out every year and having whole careers just by practicing a thing, you know, and performing it pretty well. And you can be famous in a lot of different ways. Even like a local act can be enough to sustain itself if it's local in a place where people really respect them and pay them a lot of money to play their music, you know. Being famous is not even a part really of having a successful art career. You just, again, you really need to be open-minded about what you consider success to be. I consider myself to be tremendously successful in that I, you know, have a better living situation than anyone I know my age, regardless of whether they went to school or not. That's pretty tremendous to me. And I'm not even satisfied by it. So, you know, there's nowhere to go but up.